So Mamamoo's very own Wien just dropped a new solo album the other day, and I can't think of a better album to do for my first album review. I've been a Mamamoo fan for, well, not as long as I think. Joking aside, I've been a Mamamoo fan since December 2020, December 9th to be precise. And I've absolutely fallen in love with this group. They've been like this just fantastic breath of fresh air in my music tastes, and they've got something for just about every mood, really. The group isn't just about the music, of course, but also the members, and each member is absolutely fantastic. I would claim that my bias is Moonbill, but the problem is that Hwasa also exists, and then there's Wien, and there's Solar, and it's hard to choose, is what I'm saying. It's even more difficult when you consider the fact that each member has some awesome solo music. I've heard stuff from most of them. I haven't listened to Spit It Out from Solar yet. I'm putting it off because I know I'm just going to be disappointed that it's not a Slipknot cover. But everything else, I've heard at least something from each of the other members. And I do plan on reviewing all of their solo works eventually, or at least the most recent stuff, but for now, we're just doing Redd by Wien. I know the album was going to be released more or less since the beginning of April, and that wait was incredibly painful. I almost wish that I hadn't known about it and just like, wake up, oh, there's a new album, I should check that out. But it is what it is. It was very fun to watch all the speculation about what the album was going to be made up of and all that, so pros and cons to each situation. So for my actual review, I want to start off with my initial thoughts, as I feel that my journey, if you will, with this album is an important thing to go over. So, initially, the album didn't do much for me. It had been hyped up to me more than I felt it really was, and I was honestly let down. I still liked it, but I didn't like it as much as I thought I would. And my initial thoughts I summed up in a comment I left in the r/Mamamoo Discord, so I'm just going to quote that here. Just as to all Redd. That stands for first impressions, 7 out of 10. For this longer album, 9 out of 10. For this immortal shift, an 8 out of 10. Guest vocals definitely the worst part for me. That really does just about sum it up. Album never could have lived up to the hype for me. Perhaps due to me being a metalhead at heart, and not fully being into all the ins and outs of K-pop. Perhaps it's just my personal tastes within K-pop, but whatever it was, it never could have achieved what I really wanted. Had the album been what I expected, it would easily have achieved the 9 out of 10 rating right off the bat, and likely gone up to 10 out of 10 if longer. As far as the length goes, I know the exact reason I say that. Metal! Metal music has spoiled me. It really has. Take Iron Maiden, for example. The first time I got from them, A Matter of Life and Death, has an average song length of 7 minutes and 12 seconds. That's long. They even have a song that lasts 18 minutes and 3 seconds, that being Empire of the Clouds, which, by the way, is a masterpiece. And if you haven't heard it, I would highly urge you to go check it out. It is phenomenal. Iron Maiden is, of course, known for longer songs, but on average, the metal I listen to is about 5 to 6 minutes, maybe. And albums range from about 45 minutes to an hour, just depending on the group. K-pop, on the other hand, 3-minute song average, maybe, and albums ranging from like 20 to 30 minutes. I haven't listened to enough K-pop to say for sure on that, but as an educated guess, I feel confident in it. There is nothing wrong with a shorter album, and I wouldn't want this to be stretched out artificially, but I'm used to long stuff, and so I can't help feeling that was it. As far as guest vocals go, just didn't do it for me. They've grown on me, but first listen, weren't my kind of thing. However, I'll go more into that as I get into the specific songs. So the first impressions out of the way, it's time to talk about how I actually feel on the album now. And I'm going to do this on a track-by-track basis, as I don't want to just lump everything together, because that's going to detract from the merits of each song, and I love talking about specific songs. That's the reason I do reaction content. So track 1, Watercolor. As it stands, I consider this to be the best on the album. My favorites are just between it and OHOO, but this is what I would consider to be the best one. It has a little bit of everything. Good beat, bouncing bass synth, slight rap section, super catchy chorus. Not with the ow that just hits me every time. Adds so much to the track. I honestly couldn't think of a better track to be like the lead single for the album, but I do also prefer singles to be like not the best off of the album, so it's mixed feelings on that. In my reaction video for Watercolor, I did somewhat go into all of this stuff. If you want to get my initial thoughts on the track, I would recommend checking that out. But repeat listenings are always good to get like the full thoughts together on something, and that is very much the case here. My thoughts on the music have remained more or less the same, but my lyrical interpretation has not necessarily changed, but become more concrete. I still stand on my initial interpretation about Ween singing to and about creativity and art, but I have gained another interpretation as well. I lightly touched on in my reaction how Ween was, it's interesting that she was the art, but I do have more on that. So, some lyrics are incredibly clear with it, such as, I will draw me on white paper, and every color looks good on me, which can be seen within the entire video. I mean, you see Ween wearing blue, white, purple, pink, red, probably other colors I'm not thinking of. I think there's like some black at one point. However, once the bridge kicks in, it brings to light this idea that's been floating around throughout the entire song, but has remained really subtle and kind of hidden. Sometimes I feel like I don't want to smile. You will be better, just you can cry. Throw the fake drawing away, I'm gonna live for me. This brings to light the idea of being yourself. Your true self is the art, not a fake self you create. But once all that stuff is out, things are gonna get better. Moving into the second half, the fake drawing is the fake self. Pretty clear. Throwing it away is getting rid of the fake version of you and becoming your true self. Finally, it moves into acceptance, becoming your true self, and living for that true self. Now I did mention that this idea was in an act throughout the song, and it would be foolish to leave it at that. So, here are some lyrics that point it out. It starts right in the first verse, the line, what about me? The chorus delves further into it. I'll do what's in my heart, I will draw the light I imagine. This idea carries on throughout the song, finds just I'll increase my own value. I'm still the same person I was. Even if I can't see it yet, wait a little longer, look closely at me. I'll cherish myself, I'll follow my heart, and even the line I mentioned earlier on with the idea of art, every color looks good on me. But most of these are fairly self-explanatory, and I don't want this review to be ridiculously long, so I don't dive into most of them. But I do want to go into, even if I can't see it yet, wait a little longer, look closely at me, as that has a direct tie-in to the bridge. There's the idea of how the fake self will soon be done away with and true self will be revealed. You just gotta wait to see it. Beyond that, the placement of the song adds into it. Look at the line, wait a little longer. This is towards the end of the second verse, which is then, second verse, followed by the pre-chorus, the chorus, and then the bridge. Wait a little longer. But it's a small touch, but it's those small touches that all come together and create something so much greater. The second track of the album, Trash, I didn't much like on the first listen. It has grown me a lot, though. I particularly like the strings and the high vocals right at the beginning. They elevate it a lot, and it has like the sound of like an orchestra and choir, giving it like this vaguely majestic sound. It's really cool. The acoustic guitar that kicks in briefly, and I think the choruses is really good as well, and it's sort of like this flip of the strings and vocals. It adds this really nice duality within the track, and it has these two extremes coming together and working together beautifully. I also absolutely love the flow of Trash, which I'm not doing well at all. But of all the parts of the song, that one little bit right there gets me moving the most. As far as the guest vocals are concerned, still one of my favorite parts of the album. They have grown on me a lot, but they still just don't do it for me. I didn't want to comment on the guest vocalist without knowing what he was like in his own element, and his stuff isn't my kind of thing. I listened to this track's Antisocial Malibu, and I just didn't like either one. I can't go and say that PH1 is bad or anything, but his music didn't make me move, didn't make me feel anything. There's nothing worth my time in his music. He did a good job in Trash, I will be the first to admit that, but that's it. He did a good job in Trash. He did not do a good enough job to make me go, alright, I want to check out more of this guy's stuff. He did a good job in the song, and I don't like his stuff beyond that. Now see, if it wasn't for this review, I wouldn't have checked him out at all. Lyrically, the song doesn't do much for me either. For the most part, it's really just a fairly simple love song. There's nothing wrong with that, but I can't help but feel that the lyrics lack some kind of punch that they really could have had. There are a few lines that call back to Watercolors, such as "Draw me wings, I'll lost my pen" from the first pre-chorus, and "Show me what's inside of you" from VH1's verse. However, there is one line that really stands out to me, that being, "If you open the crumpled pictures, you'll call them trash. You may be disappointed, but I don't care." The crumpled pictures briefly call back to the idea of throwing away the fake drawing, but the part about not caring calls back even further to the idea of embracing like your true self. Unfortunately, aside from these few parts, there's just not much for me lyrically, so really the only saving grace for this song is the music. It's good music, but there's not much more for me in this one. OHOO, on the other hand, as I mentioned earlier, is one of my two favorites. I absolutely love this song. The other day I was walking to class on campus, and I had my Bluetooth headphones on, and I was playing it, and I was walking along, snapping my fingers in time, and I don't know the last time I smiled that hard. That song just hits different. I don't know what it is, but just everything comes together. The acoustic guitar in the opening, the finger snapping, the whistling, the synths, the horns. It all creates this phenomenal, chill track. My only complaint is that there isn't enough acoustic guitar. Lyrically, the song is fantastic as well. While much like Trash, it's a fairly simple love song, this one just feels so much more genuine. The imagery in the song calls to mind like just the beautiful sunsets here in the mountains where I live, so I'm gonna sort of talk about the story of the song using that imagery, as that is what I can talk about. I see it like, there's this place I love going called Water Rock Knob, and there's a great hike that I love doing, but you can watch the sunset, sit on one side of it, turn around and watch the moon rise, and it's amazing, and the sunsets up there are beautiful. And if you ever get the chance to go, I would highly recommend it. So this song is like going up there with this person you love, and you're watching this just beautiful sunset, and you just turn to them and tell them that the only thing greater than this right here is how much you love them. It's really simple, but it is incredibly beautiful and exactly what I love from a love song. Well, while it doesn't really, in a way I can gather, call back to the idea of being yourself, to the idea of the self, at least not in a way I can gather, it does call back to the art and creativity aspect. A few times mentions a sketch along with opening up with the color in the sky, color of course heavily being mentioned in watercolor, and the sketch is self-explanatory. Well, I can't go too in-depth on that. I do like the idea of this song, of like a relationship being like an artwork. Now the next track, Butterfly, is a strange one for me. I much prefer the guest vocals, but I'll just say it's my least favorite on the album. It's still an absolutely amazing song, so it's not an issue of the song, but the fact that everything else is just so dang good. The big issues from the track come from its short length. If it was like 5 minutes, everything could be spread out a bit further and have more time to go through all the different movements, and it would be perfect. As it is, I'm not able to settle and enjoy the parts I love long enough. It opens up with this like piano and these bird sounds, this like spacey synth that, when put together, it makes me think of Devin Townsend's Empath for some reason. Also has just an amazing acoustic guitar, bass, and a decent drum beat that's probably the weakest part of the song. As far as the vocals go, both Wien and G-Soul are fantastic on their own, but once they come together and their vocals start like dancing around each other, it is beautiful, and is the main reason I wish the song was longer, because the outro where they do that is too short for me to truly appreciate it. So as far as G-Soul, the guest vocalist, goes, absolutely love his stuff. I took time to check out what he'd done, much like I did with PH1, and it's some dang good stuff. His feature on Redd also wasn't enough to make me check out what he'd done, but I am very glad that I did, and I'll definitely be checking out more of it. If you like the track and I haven't heard what he's done yet, from what I've heard, it has a similar vibe, so go check him out. You won't regret it. Lyrically, Redd's just another love song, but more of like a melancholic one. My personal reading is two people who both love and want each other, but want different things from life or from a relationship or whatever, and so they drift apart and ultimately, as the song puts it, fly away. Unfortunately, I just can't get much more of the song. For whatever reason, the lyrics just aren't working with me. However, Nora, who's a member of the r/Mamamoo Discord, did have a very good interpretation that they've given me permission to share here. Their interpretation is that the song is about the narrator chasing after their ideal partner, and in doing so they warp their own self and their independence. They then called up the line, "These feelings trap me, even hide me from me." This idea is wrapped up. I talk about how the narrator is still unhappy because they were only living by their partner's ideals, so they fly high and forget them, once again embracing their self. But both interpretations do relate to the central themes I've been bringing up, or at least the idea of the self. The narrator, of course, is no longer stuck in a place where they aren't happy by the end of the song. They're no longer stuck in a false persona. They have found their own personal freedom again. That idea is really supported by the "hide me from me" line. The idea of art isn't really touched upon in the song. If I really wanted to reach, I could call up the last line of the bridge, "I'll erase these memories," but I'm reaching too much with that one, and it just doesn't really work. The next track, Springtime, shifts back into more upbeat feel, though it keeps a lot of the chill nature of Butterfly. It has these different little synths that work together and create just a fun feel, some good drums there throughout, and of course, fantastic vocals. Musically, the greatest strength for me is the variation between the chorus and the verses, with the verses being a little slower, a little calmer, and the chorus having a bit more going on in it, which creates a nice variation between the two, and means once the chorus kicks in, I start moving. Lyrically, Springtime is a bit of a wild card. I can't really tie it into either of the two themes I've discussed, artwork or the self. It's, once again, a fairly simple love song in the vein of OHOO, though with its own elements as well. I see it as basically being about how much the narrator loves whoever they're singing to, and how it affects them and how they want to repay them for that, and all that kind of thing. Honestly, it's a really sweet song. It makes me smile about as much as OHOO does. However, as I've read and reread the lyrics, I just can't tie them back to the themes originally presented in watercolor. I'm sure I could reach and make up some tie-in about how their true self loves this person, so by loving this person and saying how much they do it, they're taking care of their true self and all that, but it's just disingenuous. I'm just making stuff up, and I'm not doing a good job of it. I don't know how to tie it in, so I'll just say I don't know. The final track on the album is No Thanks, which is one of the best album closers I've heard in a long time. It takes the ideas of the album, it wraps them up, it reinforces them, and on top of it all, it's a really good song. Within it, I particularly like the subtle guitar work and the sort of jazz-sounding piano at the end. And it's also great how, as it goes along, just different elements start layering on top of each other, creating this really nice build-up throughout it. My interpretation of the song is that it is about someone who claims they care about you and all that, but it's just an act, and it's telling that person to get out of your life. They aren't needed anymore. This is supported in lines such as, "I just found out that I'm not one of your priorities. I think I'm more worried than happy to welcome you, and I'm sorry to hear your laughter because I know there's nothing special about it." There's also the line, Save Me, Without You, I Think My Heart Will Become Stiff Someday, which touches on the fact that it can be hard to let go of a person like this, even though you need to, because they've been a part of your life and a part of you for so long that you're going to be different without them, and you're scared of that. And that's something that oftentimes is not considered with this kind of thing, so the fact that it was put in there was very good. And as far as the overarching themes go, there is a surface level tie into the art theme with one of the lines in the pre-chorus while drawing a picture with you. It is very much surface level, but it's there and it counts, so I get to mention it. However, the theme of the self is much more present in this song and is the main theme of it. Every line I've mentioned has either directly tied into that or has led into something that directly tied into it. It is about protecting yourself and making things better for you, cutting out that which harms you. There's also an English version of Watercolor on the album, but it's an English version of Watercolor and that's it. It's good. It's impressive that Win was able to take the song in Korean and translate it into English and make it work, but it doesn't bring anything new to the table. The lyrics differ between the translation of the Korean version and the English lyrics, but that's just to have the flow and the beat stay the same. They don't change the meaning or anything, so it's good, but the Korean version is better. Check it out if you want, but it's not anything special. So to get into the themes present in the album, there needs to be an understanding of the three types of albums that there are, at least as I see it. So those albums are albums, themed albums, and concept albums. And an album is just what it sounds like. It's an album, it has good songs, but they're not really connected by anything. A good example of that is Baby Metal's self-titled album. It's got a lot of good songs on it, but there's no specific theme or story or anything like that. A themed album is going to have a set theme or set themes, but it's not going to tell like a specific story or is not going to be needed as a whole. And a good example of that is Sabaton's Great War album. It's about World War One, that is the theme of it, but it's not about a specific battle, it doesn't follow a specific soldier, it doesn't focus specifically on the US Army or on technology or anything like that. It's just a bunch of different interesting stuff from World War One all crammed into an album. And finally, there are concept albums, which tell full stories or ideas that function much better as a whole than on its own. And a good example of that is Cowan's Sword and I, which is a fictionalized retelling of the Dyatlov Pass incident. Now, I am somewhat cheating, as technically this is a single song that's 50 minutes long. So, another good example of concept album is Pink Floyd's The Wall. With the explanation of the different types of albums out of the way, I would consider Redd a themed album. It exists within sort of the gray area between an album and a themed album, but I consider it a themed album because it has these overarching themes. They aren't present on every single song, and there is a lot of variety within the songs, but they are tied in throughout it enough that they are a major element of it, and not just, oh, a lot of these songs have these elements. So what exactly are the themes? I've mentioned two of them, but there is a third that hasn't been left unmentioned, but I haven't brought attention to it because it is not one that I can really talk about on a track-by-track basis. It is one that needs the broader context of everything to be understood, and so I will leave that theme to the last to explain it. So the first theme is the smallest one, and it's the idea of art and creativity. Watercolor does touch on it the most, but it is present in maybe half the songs. It's not just about making art, but about the beauty that is portrayed in art and that how that beauty could be seen elsewhere in life. And it is a very simple theme. It's not complex at all, but it doesn't need to be. And because of its simplicity, it is all the more beautiful. The second theme is the self. Self-expression, self-acceptance, and self-love. Watercolor, trash, and no thanks do go the most into this, but it is present on every song except for maybe Springtime. And the message with this is wonderful. It's about not hiding who you are and instead of embracing it. It's a common message these days, but it's one that, despite being common, still needs to be said more, and is something that we all need to hear. Now the third theme is the confusing one. And I call this theme love. It's more complex than that, but on a base level, it is the theme of love. Now I could take the easy way out and go, oh, there's a love song here, there's a love song here. That must be a theme on the album. I'm sure people have done that. There are a lot of love songs on the album, and that alone does make it a prevalent theme on the album. But that is not enough to warrant it being one of the overarching themes of the album. This is not just romantic love. It is also love of creation, expressed in the art theme. It is love of the self, expressed in the self theme. Every song touches on this in some way or the other. It can be hard to see in Watercolor, for example, but once there is the understanding of this isn't just romantic love, but love of creation and love of the self, it becomes pretty clear how it is present in that track. None of these themes are too complicated, too crazy, but they don't need to be. No one is asking that a roughly 20-minute album is insane and has all these complicated themes in it. It doesn't need that. They're simple themes, but they are good themes. They are powerful themes. The album would be good without them, sure. I could vibe to the songs, I could have fun listening to it, but with the themes present, I have something to think about when listening to it, and personally that heightens the enjoyment of it. It might not be the case for everyone, but it certainly is for me, and this is my review of it. So my final thoughts on the album are a lot greater than I initially expected. At the beginning I talked how my initial rating was 7 out of 10. That was my initial rating. I can't see that my initial rating has changed. But my prediction for my final rating has changed. I predicted I'd be like, yeah, 8 out of 10 album. 8 out of 10 is fair for this, but it's not my rating. My rating is 9 out of 10. I still wish it was a bit longer, and the guest features still aren't my favorite, but those are minor flaws in an otherwise near perfect album. I can't really say it lived up to the hype that I was seeing with it, but it's not an issue of the hype that it was given, but of my interpretation of the hype. I can't call this my favorite album that's been released so far in 2021, because I have to reserve that right to Canon and Thebes Menschenmüller. But it is certainly my second favorite, and the year would certainly be lesser without it. If you have not checked out this album yet, I would implore you to do so. You will not regret it. So, album review's done. I'm trying something new with this, standing up for the review, got a backdrop. It's not the best, but it works. If you have any feedback on how this came out, let me know. I'm still figuring out how to go about doing a video like this, because I haven't done anything like this before. From just the recording process, I think I did good. I just need to practice at it more, so just let me know what advice you have to improve this. There will be more album reviews coming out soon, and once I receive it in the mail, I'll be doing an unboxing video of Redd, so be on the lookout for that. There will also, 2 days after this, I'm not sure if this is going to release on Monday or Tuesday, but 2 days after this video comes out, I will have a Blackpink reaction out, so be on the lookout for that. I'm looking forward to recording that. I've been looking forward to it for a long time. Stuff just keeps getting in the way of it. As always, like the video if you liked, subscribe if you want to see more, and comment down below with any thoughts or feedback. Thank you for watching, and until next time, I'll be seeing you.